Hello, hello, hello. We are back. Ron is my wonderful, the show's wonderful co-host is here as usual. Say hello, Ron.
Hey guys.
And Guillermo from Chicago Now is here. His Twitter handle is at FireConf. He joined us for the U.S. Open Cup match preview, and we enjoyed having him so much. We brought him back. Say hello, Guillermo.
Yeah, guys. Hello, everybody.
So, long story short, we Orlando City is in terrible form, and we have Chicago this week, who's in better form than we are. They have 2 wins, 2 losses, and a draw in their last 5. Last time we saw Chicago was in the U.S. Open Cup. We lost 3-1. Kennedy Igbanike scored twice. They had 20 shots, and about 7 of them were on goal. We had 8 shots, 1 was on goal. We controlled possession of the game just barely, 54% to 46%. But either way you look at it, they knocked us out. Since then, they have, been knocked out of the U.S. Open Cup by Philadelphia. And as we all know, their leaders are Cam and Kennedy Igbanike. They both have torched us pretty bad. So we are in really bad form, and I am not feeling the most positive if any of you follow me on Twitter. But so we'll hop in. We'll just do lineups real quick, and then we'll talk about Chicago's form, and then we'll talk a little bit about our form and see where it goes from there. So I'm expecting the typical lineup, which isn't working at the moment for us. I hope Rivas will, play this week on the left wing because he had 2 of 4 shots in the last game in whatever the 15 minutes he was on. Our back line pairing and the center halves have been terrible. Ramos is out, so hopefully we'll play Corey Ash at right back because, the experiment with Tyler Turner was pretty bad. So, Ron, what do you think about our lineup this week?
Well, obviously, Adrian Venter's out, so we are down to the bare bones at right mid. Also, Rafael Ramos is out, both with red cards last week. That appeal was denied today. So, yes, I expect Corey Ash to switch to right back. I doubt we see Tyler Turner. It was a pretty miserable outing for the rookie against whatever that was, Seattle. So, I expect Bowden, Collin, and Ash, and I think there's a possibility you could see 18-year-old Tommy Redding on that back line with Collin. Adrian Heath was speaking very well of him today. It's probably a little bit more likely that we'll see Mateos and Collin, I guess, again. Mateos has had 2 games for this team, and they've given up 9 goals, so it's not been an impressive showing for that center back pairing since Mateos has come over from Hungary. So keep in mind there is the possibility that Redding could slot into Collin. He's impressed in the few games he's played. I also expect Higuita and Soren to pair back up in the middle and holding midfielder, and then Laren up top, Kaká in the middle, and then your favorite set of wingers might be flanking Kaká, Luis Neal and Eric Avila. We hope to see Carlos Rivas. That will give us some speed because Chicago's speed just really kills us both times we've played them. So, but no one Adrian Heath. We'll probably see Luis Neal and Eric Avila.
And if we see Luis Neal and Eric Avila, we will lose. But anyway, Guillermo, I know you guys play the 4-4, like 1-1 or a 4-4-2. Is that what we should expect from Chicago this week?
Yeah, it's a 4-4-2. I think it's very flexible. Yallop's called it a 4-4-3 before, but it's more or less a 4-2-3-1 or a flat 4-4-2 with 2 forwards if Gilberto and Igboananike. And I'm going to get you to say Igboananike correctly at some point. If those 2 guys are the forwards up front, like they were on Wednesday night against New York, you'll probably see, I would imagine, those 2 guys out there again. They have, in the last month or so, tended to play Matt Polster out of central midfield and back at right back because Lovell Palmer has not played well at right back, so they have very limited options on the outside. Polster's moved to the back. He hasn't been a whole lot better than than Palmer, but he does provide a little bit more as far as crossing ability goes, and a little bit more as far as passing in the combination game. You'll probably see Michael Stevens, who has played very well in the last few games since being inserted to the lineup, with more than likely Razvan Kochish at center mid. That seems to be the Fire's best combination if Polster's not going to be at center mid. I think most people would like to see Polster and Stevens in that in the middle of the field, but it seems like Polster is going to be right back for now. On the outside, we mentioned the Fire's speed, and that's where a lot of their offense is generated with Patrick Nyako and David Akam. It's going to be Corey Ash, who I would expect if Ramos isn't available. Somebody's going to have to be able to hold down Akam. I think teams have sort of sent multiple defenders after him in hopes of slowing him down. But some of the New York Red Bull people who hadn't seen him in person on Wednesday night were very impressed after seeing him play live. He is a handful and very difficult to defend one-on-one. You'll need multiple defenders to slow him down. Patrick Nyako on the other side has also played well. You've got to figure out where Harry Shipp fits in there. He didn't start on Wednesday night, so he may start on the outside on the right side Saturday night against Orlando City. The back line, other than Polster, it's going to be Gehrig and Lorenowitz, who I think have done reasonably well at center back, and Jovan Jones was actually injured late in the game Wednesday night, so they're going to have to decide whether or not they want to play Palmer at left back. He's played there before, but he's not done well there either. He's not a natural left back. They do have Greg Cochran, who's a younger player who is basically a squad guy who can play left back. They've got Patrick Doody, who's a younger player with St. Louis FC, who can play left back. So they've got to make a decision on who will be at left back if Jovan Jones can't go. And like I said, you'll probably see Gilberto and Kennedy Guadagnino, who have been very good Wednesday night. And actually, you mentioned the U.S. Open Cup, the 2 goals that Guadagnino scored. That got him onto a roll. He had struggled coming into Chicago for the better part of the entire season up until that game, and now he's on a roll. He scored 2 goals Wednesday night. Scored 2 goals in the game previous to that, so he's starting to pick up his game. I still think he needs a player like Gilberto in there to make things happen for him. It seems like that's a good combination, but we'll see if he can keep it up. I think Gilberto is a dangerous player and a little bit underrated, considering that people saw him as a little bit of a letdown acquisition after the entire Didier Drogba fiasco.
All right, well, I know you just mentioned the Jovan Jones injury. Last time we saw you guys in the Open Cup, you said that you guys were really banged up in the match preview. Other than Jones, is there any other significant injuries to the team that we should know about?
No significant injuries. Adailton, who was a starting center back at that point, is no longer a starter, has been out for a while with a groin injury. Jones may miss the game. Mike McGee has been battling a knee injury that doesn't seem to go away. He had an MRI on Monday, didn't practice a whole lot, but he was on the bench this past Wednesday. Other than that, the Fire are pretty healthy at this point.
And, go ahead.
It sounds like the back line's a bit of a mess. You kind of had a problem putting 4 guys back there. So are you telling me we're going to see some goals on Saturday?
Boy, you can never tell with MLS, and I've kind of given up on trying to predict on what the Fire are going to look like from game to game. There are games where you expect them to play well, and they'll come out absolutely flat. There are games you expect them to play well defensively, and they absolutely break down completely. I think as long as Lorenowitz and Gehrig are the starting center back tandem, they'll be reasonably. I wouldn't say great, but they're a competent MLS level center back pairing. On the outside is where they have the problems with Jones missing. That also takes away a little bit from them offensively. Right side, they've got to figure out who's going to play right back for them at some point. I don't know that there's an answer for it this year. That's why you see Matt Polster out there. I think that defensively, they've been okay with Lorenowitz and Gehrig back there.
So it sounds like your center backs are better than ours. But I just wanted to, you mentioned it briefly, and if you could just talk a little bit about it from your perspective, what happened with Drogba. Obviously we know that you guys sold his rights, but, were you guys hoping that you would actually, bring him in, or what is your stance on that and the overall stance, just that you get a feeling from the fans and the media around Chicago?
Well, the Drogba and mess, and I'll call it a mess because that's kind of what it turned into, is a little bit different than the Jermaine Jones circus from last season. Uh, Drogba at one point sat down with the Fire after he was made available, or after he announced his intention or his interest in MLS. The Fire apparently had the discovery claim on him, so they decided, well, let's talk to Didier Drogba. At one point, before the targeted allocation money mechanism was introduced or finalized, the Fire said, well, we've got 3 designated players. We may not be able to pursue him. Essentially passing on the discovery rights. At that point, Montreal got involved, talked to Drogba, started the conversation going with Joey Saputo, with Didier Drogba's people. He became interested in Montreal. At around the same time, MLS sat down with all the technical staffs, and I want to say this was right around July 1st. MLS sat down with all the technical staffs, held a conference call, and outlined the process for the targeted allocation money and how that was going to work. The Fire went back and said, well, we may be able to make this work. We're interested in Didier Drogba. So they went back, started targeting Drogba again, increased their offer in the hopes of convincing him to want to come to Chicago. I think at that point he had his heart set on Montreal. The Fire sat down with him again and upped the offer to somewhere around $3 million a year. There was a trip out to London by the technical staff to try to convince him, but it seemed like his mind was made up at that point. He wanted to play in Montreal. He liked and a lot has been made about the French language up there, and I don't think that's inaccurate. I think the culture in the smaller city and the French-speaking culture played a part in where he wanted to go. I think a lot of people here, or a lot of fans here, kind of see that as a slight against ownership and a continued inability to land those type of guys. I think to some point that's valid, but I think opening the door for him to talk to Montreal was probably the where the error came in, or where the misstep came in. That gave him the opportunity to have 2 cities to choose from. He ended up in Montreal. So that's the Didier Drogba story in a nutshell.
And what about the recent? Because you said you had 3, but we know since then you've sold Maloney to Hull. How do you think that's gonna affect the squad? I guess for the rest of the season, I'm gonna assume next season you'll bring in a 3rd DP or a 4th or both.
Yeah, they'll bring somebody else in next year. I don't think it's going to affect them dramatically this year. I thought Sean Maloney had underperformed a bit coming into this year. I think the expectations for him were a lot higher than he actually produced. He was okay. He wasn't spectacular. I don't think he was worth the close to $1.5 million they were paying him. At some point in the last month or so, Maloney decided he didn't like the way things were going. He decided, I want to go back to the UK. The Fire, at that point, were still alive in the U.S. Open Cup and getting ready for a semifinal in Philadelphia, so they decided to hold on to him despite having some interest from Hull City. Once they were eliminated by the Union, Hull City came back, and it was pretty much a no-brainer. If he wanted to go, Hull City was making an offer that they liked. So they made the move. I don't know that it's going to affect them. Harry Shipp can play his position, and Gilberto already in one game has 2 assists, which is the total that Sean Maloney had for the entirety of his Fire career over 14 games. So he was a good player. He wasn't as influential or as important as you would expect a designated player to be. He was just okay.
We know about designated players who are not impactful.
Hey,
So
Guillermo, real quick, do you think that the Maloney exit can somehow maybe take some weight off the organization's shoulders, and maybe the team will be better now because of it? Is that possible?
Yeah, I don't know that they're better because Sean Maloney is gone. I think they may be better because they're able to put Gilberto into that spot, and he's maybe a better fit for what they've got personnel wise. Um, there are still some issues with that team because of the way that things have gone this year. Uh, Players in the locker room aren't real happy, and there's you've got to give it to them for at least continuing to fight in some of these games, but. I think most of them realize that the playoffs are a really, really long shot, and they're just playing out the last 9 games. Um, yeah, I don't want to say that Sean Maloney was a bust because I don't think he was a bust, but he wasn't as good as they thought he was going to be.
All right, well, we'll just hop into this week then. And Ron, what do you think the key matchup is for Orlando City, other than Rivas? I know you wanted to see Rivas. I don't think we'll see Rivas. I don't think that you think we're going to see Rivas. So, other than him on the left wing, what do you think we need to do to actually get a point or maybe 3 points if we're lucky?
This team really has to get back to the possession advantage it enjoyed in the beginning of the year. They've got away from that the past month and a half, and the results haven't gone their way, and they haven't even been close. They tried to just defend. They tried going up to Toronto and not even bothering to attack, just park the bus and defend. And even though they held the Toronto scoreless through 35 minutes, it was just a matter of time before Giovinco and company broke through. So this team really needs to get back to controlling possession, and especially with a team like Chicago coming into town. Chicago is going to generally let them have possession and then use David Accam and Nyako to hit us on the counterattack. And I even though Orlando City is vulnerable on the counterattack, they don't defend it very well. They're at their best when they're just controlling possession. Their best defense is their offense. It's to keep the ball away from the other team. So Orlando City needs to get back to that. And if you're going to have players like Eric Avila and Louis Neal on the field, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to keep the ball compact, keep the ball moving even in small spaces, because that's what those players do. They're not going to get deep. They're not going to make through balls. So if you can't maintain a possession control with those two wingers, then they're in lots of trouble. Because if they let Chicago just blast down the wings, it's going to be a long night. I do think Corey Ash can match up somewhat well with Accam. Ash has got a lot of speed. He's feisty. He's tough. So even though Accam is not, it's not a stroll in the park to mark him, no matter who you are. But I think Ash can do an adequate job on him. And then Bowden on the left side will be responsible for probably getting upfield more and sending crosses into the box. But really, if Rivas is not in the game, I have a hard time thinking we're going to do anything on the wings, and everything's going to have to go centrally. And probably Kyle Laren's going to have to pull something out of his locker, and like he was in the beginning. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is right now.
I think you said it best. It is unfortunate. Kyle Laren, had those 3 good games where he scored 1, 3, and 2 goals, and he hasn't scored since August 1st. So, if it's going to have to go through the middle to Laren, we might be in trouble. Ron, why do you think that Kyle Laren's form has dipped after those outbreak games?
He's just simply not getting the service anymore. It's as simple as that. He's probably only touched the ball 5 or 6 times in the opponent's box in the last 2 or 3 matches. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they put Drogba up there. It doesn't matter if they put Messi up there. It doesn't matter. If you don't get service, you're not going to score. So, Kaká's been frustrated, and the team had to have like a sit-down meeting where everybody got everything off their chest today. So clearly, you can tell that things were pretty bad around here. And they had that team meeting today. They apparently had a really lively training. So this is probably going to hopefully be Orlando City's last-ditch effort to try to salvage the season. But yeah, it's going to have to come through Kaká and Laren like it normally does. They just simply don't have the quality of player to really attack you other than those 2 players.
And Ron, do you think we'll make the playoffs?
Gosh, you got to put me on the spot like that. I think there's a small chance if they can beat Fire this weekend, but it's now or never. It's do or die this weekend. If Fire comes to town and gets a point, it's over. And which leads me into a question that I had for Guillermo. What are the supporters' feelings for Chicago the rest of the season? Do they think this team can make a last-ditch run, or is it just going through the motions at this point?
No, I don't think a lot of supporters are of the belief that the Fire are going to make the playoffs or make a playoff run. Montreal's in the 6th spot, and they've got 3 games in hand on the Fire. So 2 points out, 3 games in hand. I think Montreal would have to absolutely collapse, which is not within the realm. That's not totally out of the question. I think Montreal is definitely capable of a collapse, especially without Piatti for the next 4 to 6 weeks, supposedly. He's very important to their attack. Even with Drogba, they've gotten some of their guys back. I think Justin Mapp is back. Um, and Montreal is very capable of falling apart. They've got so many games in hand. It would take a monumental collapse for them to lose that sixth spot and let one of the Orlando, Philadelphia, New York City FC, or the Fire catch them. Um, this weekend it's big for both teams. I think both of them need wins. Both of them need all 3 points to continue to at least have a chance. I think the 6 teams that are in the Eastern Conference that are occupying the Eastern Conference playoff spots right now are the 6 you're going to see in postseason. I don't think any Fire supporters are realistically thinking this team can make a playoff run, and if they do, they're not an MLS Cup contender. So what's the point?
Yeah, the good news is at least you can, if you do put 2 or 3 results together, things can change quick because Orlando City hasn't really got any points in the last month almost since the Columbus match, and they continue to stay level with all these teams right around the 6th seed. Obviously, Montreal has all those games in hand, but Chicago would jump Orlando City this weekend with a win, so you never know. A couple results in a row could at least make it interesting for the final few weeks.
Yeah, the MLS Eastern Conference is bad enough that all of the teams are going to have a chance to make it. I don't think it's the Fire haven't won on the road since July 12th of last year. So that's a long time.
We've lost 6 of our last 8. So if you're ever gonna, I guess, be a stump buster, this is probably a good week for that. But so just Guillermo, I just have one last question for you, and we'll do predictions and we'll wrap up. And if you have any questions for us, we'll address those as well. From the Fire standpoint, who do you think is the player to watch on Orlando other than Kaká? I mean, like if Avila and Neal are on the wings, like there's nothing attacking going forward there. So who would it be that you would want your defense to keep an eye on?
Well, if Carlos Rivas would be that guy, but if he's not playing, like you guys said, Orlando City is a lot easier to defend. Kyle Larin has been phenomenal at times. He scored a great goal against the Fire in Chicago in the regular season game a couple of months ago. Rivas, for me, would be the guy to look for if he's available.
All right. Well, and did you have any questions that you wanted to ask us?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you guys about what's going on with the Orlando City defense. It seems like it's fallen apart since the St. Ledger fiasco in New York City, and after he was released. Is that accurate? Have they fallen apart since St. Ledger was released, and what is the issue?
Go ahead.
Yeah, they really have. Unfortunately, Sean St. Ledger was especially, we know this now, but he was one of the best 2 center backs on this team, if not maybe the best one. Collins' play has fallen off since St. Ledger left, and the team unfortunately was left with little choice. They pretty much had to set an example. They had to cut him. I mean, if you miss the flight back, you're unavailable for a couple of days. You miss a couple of days of training. I don't know what else they could have really done. If you let him get away with that, then there's already discipline problems on this team as we speak. So it was unfortunate, and it happened right in the middle of the transfer window, and then they kind of had to scramble to bring in David Mateos. And even though there was rave reviews from Hungary from him, we've seen he's just extremely slow, which really scares me against Chicago. So yeah, and part of the defense's problem is the rest of the team. And there's been no attack, there's been no possession, so the ball's just getting slammed down their throat on a continual basis. We've had to have Servando Carrasco as one of the holding midfielders, and he's not really one of those guys that gets stuck in there for a hard tackle or a last-ditch effort. So, for some reason, Higuita and Seren, who were so phenomenal in the first half of the year and through most of the year, they've kind of been split up, and them controlling midfield was really how Orlando City, it's how they were good most of the year. So now that those 2 players are back, now that I don't know. It's going to be tough, but yeah, the defense just there's not a lot of quality back there at center back, and the fact that they have the ball rammed down their throat all match doesn't help either. So yes, you're right. Sean St. Ledger leaving is definitely hurt, but it's a collective, it's a group thing. This team just there's not one player on this team that's in form right now.
You know, you mentioned the issues with discipline on this team. Is that an issue with Adrian Heath losing control of the locker room, or what is the issue there?
You want to answer that, Sam?
I No, I don't.
Okay. It's a touchy subject around here. You have to. I think you personally. I don't mind talking about it, but some blame has to fall on the coach. This team just gets red card after red card after red card after red card, and you can't continually blame the referees. Some of the decisions were probably poor by the referees, but my biggest problem with this team over the past couple of months is, or the past month, is that they keep making excuses, and that's why I did like the team intervention meeting, whatever you want to call it today, because today was the first time that they kind of said, you know what, it's on us to play better, it's on us to do things right. And that's kind of just how this whole discipline thing's gone. When you think, the world's out to get you and you make excuses, you're just not going to get better. So I think that discipline does start with the head coach. I think they're starting to address it this week. Unfortunately, I think they're a month late with it. But yeah, there are some discipline issues, and I think it starts from the top.
And my sentiments on this are a little the same and a little different. I think that the front. I just I want to, I guess, point my fingers at above Adrian Heath, because I don't think this team actually has the talent to be as competitive as we portray ourselves to be, so to speak. And I think that the discipline issues and the lack of form is just a result of the inability to bring in talent in the window and the missed opportunities in the designated player positions, because Kaka has really no help. So you saw him in the All-Star game. He balled out when he had people who can actually play to his level. And I just don't. I don't think it's all on Heath. I think the problem might even be bigger than Heath. So
No, there's definitely some talent issues, but that 9 red cards is 9 red cards.
yeah, but it's just player frustration and just generally, I
I
guess,
know, but when
is.
you see players that are right in the face of officials yelling at them after you've already had a guy sent off, and the official can't get them to go away, it's a collective group thing where they just don't get it, and 9 red cards speaks for itself. And quite frankly, I expect more this year until I see a difference. I mean, they had a friendly the other night with Louisville City, and there was probably 2 instances in a friendly that they could have had a player sent off, both Ramos and Tyler Turner. So that's a little bit disturbing that it seems like they're not learning from their mistakes.
Interesting.
And yeah, all right. Well, you got any other questions for us, Guillermo?
No, I think that was it. I was wondering why the defense was so bad, but
Well, when you
Lack of.
play with 10 and 9 men, it's pretty easy to give
yeah,
up
that,
goals.
that would explain it.
Yeah, and when you generate no offense, like Ron said, it doesn't help either. Anyway, all right. So we'll do score predictions. Ron, you can go first.
It depends. If Rivas plays this game, then we'll have a little more action on the wings. And for some reason, I'm really seeing a 2-2 draw out of this match. But if we have to start Avila and Neal on the wings, I don't see how any way we could score 2 goals. So I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. I think that Orlando City might have a spirited effort, but Chicago's going to score on the counter. That speed's going to get us at some point.
All right, Guillermo.
Yeah, Ron stole my thunder there. I was going to go 2-2. Fire have had a tendency to play badly when they can least afford it. This is probably an instance where they can least afford it. I think uh, both teams are where they're at because they deserve to be. Being that they're both struggling and trying to get back into the playoff race, I have no problem seeing a 2-2 draw out of this game.
All right. Well, we're scoreless in the last 3 weeks. We only had 4 shots on goal last week. We've given up 9 goals in 2 games. I think Chicago is going to come to Orlando and beat us 2-0. I think that we're a sinking ship, and I just think it's going down faster and faster every week. So if we only give up two
Sounds like a Fire
goals,
fan.
Yeah, if we only give up 2 goals this week, I think that'll be an improvement based on our last two, because the last two we've given up 5 and 4 respectively. So if we only give up 2 this week, I'll chalk that up as I guess, as a moral victory, so to speak. So my glass is half empty on this team as of right now. So hate to be the pessimist in the group, but I think Chicago pulls it out 2-0. So there you guys have it. Another match preview. Thank you again, Ron. I always appreciate you coming on every week. You're the man, and you're the best co-host ever. And Guillermo, thank you for coming on. We really enjoy having you, and you're very knowledgeable, and we enjoy these great conversations. So, Ron, say adios.
See you guys. Good luck this weekend, Guillermo.
All
Thanks,
right,
guys.
Guillermo, thanks again. And Guillermo, just one last, your website and your Twitter handle.
Yeah, it's chicagonow.com/fire. It's Chicago Fire Confidential. And on Twitter, it's @FireCon.
And one last thing, I've been slipping on this, guys. Make sure you read Ron's articles at City Soccer Talk and watch City Soccer Talk live every day around 5. All right, that's all. Peace out. Oh, and I'll be doing fan cam probably by lot 10 and 11, like I did versus Columbus. I haven't done fan cam in a couple weeks, but I will be out there unless it's pouring rain. So, all right, peace out, guys. Thanks for the watch. Thanks, Guillermo. Thanks, Ron. See ya.
See ya.